Hello and welcome to Ahrex fly tying. My name is Håkan and today we will be tying a salmon fly. We will be tying this classic blue charm, which is an old salmon fly with a feather wing. And the hook we're using is the Ahrex classic salmon HR 413. This is the size 1/0, which is the biggest. We set the thread just above the hook point. There's where I always start when I tie the salmon flies. Because the first thing we are tying on the fly is the tag, which is just down the hook bend. And the first part of the tag is fine oval silver tinsel. So I tie in a small piece on the underside of the hook and tie it down along the shank. Make sure it lays on the right side. And I go down to just above the hook bob and just move the thread away. And then we make 3 touching turns with the silver and tie it in. And then we tie it in all the way up to where we started, also on the underside of the hook, just to make sure we get a smooth underbody for the floss tag. And the other part of the tag is yellow floss. I'm using Cairnton, which is a true silk, which is very shiny and nice. And I've split the floss, so I just use 1/3 of the floss threads. Tie it in, and just cover the shank down to the silver tip, and then forward again. Make sure that the floss lays flat onto the hook, and tie it in. So there we have the first part of the fly, the tag. The next thing is to tie in the tail, which is made of a golden pheasant feather. This is the crest feather, which is found on the top of the head of the bird. I want the feather to be slightly longer than behind the hook bend, and I don't want it to be too curved because this will set the wing. If you have a too high feather, the wing needs to be high to meet the tail. So I try to get it not too high. And of course it should be tied on straight onto the hook shank and secured. And if it is a bit too high, I normally just make 1, maybe 2 turns back onto the tag to tie it down slightly. This is nice. Next thing is the part of the fly that's called the butt, which is just a part to cover the tie-in point of the tail and the tag. And I'm using a black ostrich herl. And to make sure that this herl doesn't move around, I wax the thread and make a waxed part to tie in the herl. And then we just strip off some fluffy fibers, so we just have the stem to tie in. And then we just make a couple of turns as close to each other as possible. And tie. And then I go with the thread all the way up to close to the hook eye. And there we will tie in another piece of silver tinsel. This is slightly thicker than the one we tied in before. This is the size small. and tie it in also on the other side of the hook and tie it down along the hook shank all the way back to the ostrich foot. Just get it out of the way. Oh. So. And then I go forward again to tie in a piece of black floss, which is the body of the fly. And cover the shank all the way back to the ostrich. If you want a thicker body, you can use the thread or maybe a heavier thread to make a tapered underbody. But I think 2 layers of floss is quite enough on this fly anyway. And then we move forward again. Make sure that the floss is always coming on flat to the hook, so we don't get any bumps on the way. And just secure it and cut off the waist. So, and then we take the silver tinsel and we make 5 turns. And tie in and cut off. The next thing is the hackle, and I'm using the blue hand hackle. The reason I'm using hand is because the fibers are much softer than on a rooster hackle. So I raise the fibers and cut off the tip, because I always tie it in by the tip. And the reason for that is you can hold the stem, you don't need a plier, and the stem is much thinner closer to the tip, so it doesn't build up as much as if you should use the root end of the hackle. And then we just stroke back the fibers, we double the hackle as we tie it in. Like this. And secure. And then I just stroke down the fibers on the side and make 1 turn or 2 just to keep them in place. The wing of the fly is made out of 2 material. The main wing is made of speckled brown turkey, and we have sort of a small roof on top, which is made of slips of teal. So I start by cutting out 2 slips, 1 from each side, and place them together so the tips meet. Make sure they are even in the broad, and make sure that the tips of the wing goes all the way back to the tip of the tail. And the secret to get the wing to keep this shape is to make sure that the thread pressure comes from above and straight down. And how I do it, I take the thread and lay it over the wing 2 times. Before I loosen the grip, I get a hold of the root end and just open, push down the root end, and then the thread will go down slightly, and then you just pull it firmly, and hopefully the wing is nicely set. You can make 1 or 2 turns to secure the wing before you cut it off. Make sure it's straight on top. Make sure you get all the fibers, but not the wing. I think that's good enough. And the last thing to do is to cut out 2 strips of teal, not too wide, and tie them in one at a time. And they're supposed to lay sort of on top of the wing, make sort of a roof over the wing. So I gently stroke down the fibers by the end, so it will follow the wing easier. And just put it on top and carefully tie it in so it doesn't slip down. Just lays on top of the wing like this. It's not easy to get teal long enough to cover a wing long like this wing, but as long as possible. And then we do the same on the other side. Pull down and just put it on the side. Let's see. Oh, it's kind of... That's okay. And just make sure to secure the wing. And there we have the finished fly. Let's see if we can cut off all this. And the only thing that's left is now to cover the head and make it slightly bigger. Cover with thread. And then we just make a whip finish. And just put a couple of layers of varnish on the head to make it shiny and hard. And then we have the finished blue charm.